Okay, hey, thank you for having some interest in A Place to Talk. Today we're going to talk about what is a cult, why somebody might consider A Place to Talk a cult or not a cult, and maybe what a cult is. Okay, so what if I told you that the average church shares more traits with a cult than you would think? Would you hear me out? I'm not here to bash faith. I'm here to question control. Because when people stop talking, stop thinking, and just obey, that's not faith anymore. That's fear. Okay, what are the signs of a cult? Authoritarian leadership is the first sign of a cult. To give you a little history of A Place to Talk, before A Place to Talk's first, before we even were called A Place to Talk, we were gathering together with a group of people who were looking for a new pastor. And I was kind of asked to be a part of helping them find a new pastor. And so as I started to think about what a pastor was, I wanted to know what they were looking for in a pastor. And so I literally said to them, what is it that you're looking for in a pastor? And I took white Post-it notes, those big sheets, that you would hang up on the wall. They were, they're huge, like posters. And so I hung them up on the wall and I began to ask them, what are you looking for in a pastor? And they started listing characteristics. They listed all these different characteristics of what a good teacher would be and what a strong leader would be about, emotion and energy. And they talked about parenting and what a parent was and like discipline and leadership. They talked about what a leader was, and they talked about what a teacher was and being able to help them teach. And then I went back and I circled all these different words with three colors of markers. We used one color to say, hey, all of these are things that you're looking for that are like characteristics of a father. And all of these are characteristics in a different color. I circled them. All of these are characteristics of a teacher, and I circled in a third color. All of these are characteristics of a good leader. And so basically, am I right? Would I be right that in a new pastor, you're looking for a father, teacher, leader? And they said, yeah, that's it. That kind of sums it up. We're looking for a leader and a teacher and a father. And then I showed them in Matthew where Jesus says, don't call anyone on earth your leader. Don't call anyone on earth your father or your teacher. And it kind of caused us to go, wait, well, what does that mean? So that's a passage of scripture that is something that Jesus said that I kind of wonder why Christian churches throughout time have just kind of ignored it. It's like one of those things that they read it, it's there, but it never sunk in. You don't hear any sermons about that because we have all of these pastors across the country that many of them even say, you don't call him John, you call him Pastor John. You don't call him Bob, you call him Pastor Bob. And there's something about that to me, it's exactly the opposite of what Jesus is teaching. Okay, so one of the signs of a cult is an authoritarian leader. And I'm not saying that every church that has a person that's called pastor is guilty of this authoritarian leadership. But I want you to rethink it. Ask yourself, is this leader kind of seen as chosen or infallible? Is this leader kind of one that you're not supposed to question? Is this leader kind of in a hierarchical position and not a servant? I think those are things that are worth thinking about. So signs of a cult. 1, authoritarian leadership. A Place to Talk has no pastor. We don't have leaders and we don't have teachers. We have people who lead conversations, people who encourage questions, people who try to help one another, but we don't have that kind of authoritarian hierarchical role. The second thing is this us versus them mentality, and you might kind of get that A Place to Talk might have that vibe because we're kind of open, and even in this video talking about how a lot of churches are like a cult in many ways. Well, I would say that we're not very exclusive and we welcome anybody. You say, well, I don't even believe that Jesus is God. We're like, okay, come on, hang out with us. You say, well, I'm an atheist. I don't even believe there is a God. Well, who cares? Come on and hang out with us. Actually, Somebody sent me an invitation to an atheist Facebook group the other day and said, Josh, I think you'd like the people in this group. And so one of the questions you had to answer, it said, are you a theist or are you an atheist? And I said, I'm a theist. And, I thought, well, they're probably going to reject me from the group. And the next question was, why do you want to be in this group? And I said, because I like atheists better than theists most of the time. And that was my answer to the group. I figured they would reject my membership. My membership got approved very quickly. So I thought, well, that's interesting. So anyway, we're not very exclusive. We invite everybody. That us versus them mentality. We don't think that you're evil if you're not part of a place to talk. In fact, most of the world have to be evil if we believe that, because we're a tiny little group. Okay, so the third thing that's a sign of a cult is this isolation and control. They ban books, they burn books, they encourage you to be a part of their summer program, their church program, their sports program, and I'm not saying that every time that you have a sports program at a church it's a bad thing, but I didn't want my kids playing upward. I wanted my kids playing with everybody else because I wanted them to be challenged by all of the different quality of athletes, but I also wanted them to be, salt and light in the world. And so our kids all graduated from public schools because we wanted them to be salt and light in the world. We didn't want them to be isolated and controlled by a set of doctrine or theology or education. We wanted them to have a wide education. Okay, so signs of a cult: authoritarian leadership, us versus them mentality, isolation and control, information suppression, like there's a lot of places where in religion and faith where education's just mocked and dissenting ideas are suppressed and books and internet and outside education are discouraged or banned, and members are often kept too busy or distracted to reflect critically. So I would say, instead of suppressing information, A Place to Talk welcomes information. We want you to come and be a part of us. We want you to read from different faiths and share those ideas. In fact, we have a prison chaplain that's part of our community, and sometimes he'll lead a conversation and lead a chat about some other faith, the beliefs of some other group or some other system. And I think that's awesome. And we want to encourage education. We want you to understand. So I would think A Place to Talk is the opposite of a place that is that's suppressing information. Fear and shame tactics. I remember being a part of a church where the preacher would often talk about those heathen parents who are taking their kids off to play all these sports on Sundays or travel weekends, and how that was going to destroy the family. A Place to Talk would be the opposite of that. I'd say, hey, get out there, be with that community. During a sports season, when you're traveling with a team, do life with that team, have meals with that team, laugh with that team. And you know what? It might be that some of your love and kindness will rub off on that team, and that's healthy. So go when you need to, come back when you can. Love bombing and emotional manipulation. Man, I remember so many times that as a teenager growing up in a cult, I would spend lots and lots and lots of time crying on the altar over my sins. Maybe I'd had an impure thought or had some kind of, done something that we considered horrible, and it was just that the control and the love bombing and the emotional manipulation, it was just, it still haunts me to this day. I was telling some kids, some friends, a friend of mine's children, about how manipulated he was growing up. Not he was manipulative. He had been manipulated by that same cult and church world that I had been a part of, and it just it messed his brain up. There's so many people that just have been destroyed by cultic behavior in religion, and even Christian religions. So I think we're the opposite of manipulation. We're very careful not to use emotional pleas. There's never been a time at a place to talk where we've had seven verses of just as I am trying to get people to the altar. We just don't do that. We don't have altar calls. If you want to make some kind of commitment and some kind of life change because of a conversation at a place to talk, just do it. Just make a commitment, make a life change. You don't have to walk an aisle. You don't have to cry. You can just say, you know what? I realize I've been an a-hole and I want to be kinder, or I've been controlling and I want to be more loving. I've been this and I want to be that. Just do it. Just make the change in your life. You don't need to spend 30 minutes on your knees confessing everything. Anyway, not that those, and I'm not making fun of those things. I'm not mocking those things. I'm just concerned that sometimes what's decisions that are made in emotion and a manipulation, they don't last. I would rather your decisions be made in intellectual decisions. Okay, number 7, financial exploitation. Anyway, turn to page number 50 in your wallets, that kind of sermon. A place to talk has never, here's the way they used to say it in the cult. We don't require that you give a tenth, but God does. We don't teach that you give a tenth, but that's just kind of in the book. That's what God said. That's just financial exploitation. I'll tell you why a place to talk doesn't do that. I think the biggest reason we don't do that is because of, number one, we don't have a father, leader, or teacher. We don't have a person who makes their livelihood from tithes and offerings. We don't pay salaries. We pay somebody to mow the grass, and that's about it. We don't pay pastors or secretaries or any of those things. And we don't do that because that's just not who we are. And we don't pass an offering plate. If you want to give to a place to talk, it's because you see something that we're doing and you want to be a part of it. And that's it. If you don't want to be a part of it, don't do it. We're never going to pass the plate. We're probably never going to ask you for money. It's just not who we are. The 8th characteristic of a cult is that total commitment is expected, encouraged, or pushed. The way that was done in the cult that I grew up in was there was always all these questions about what's God's will for your life. Well, that question, what's God's will for your life, in the cult, it turned into, well, maybe God's calling you to be a missionary or a pastor or a teacher or a leader, you some kind of religious role, or Christian school teacher. And it's just that kind of total commitment that was expected. A place to talk, we are not going to do that. It's just not who we are. We'd encourage you to have a job where you work with other people and you love people. We'd encourage you to have a job where you offer a service to the planet, to the people, and you do good work and you get compensated for it. We would encourage you to not wrap your life up with identity into a church or a group, but wrap your life up in an identity of love, just caring about others and doing what's good. Okay, so if you're wondering, are you in a cult? Can you leave without fear of penalty, like hell or some other thing? Can you disagree with something openly in the cult meeting? If you can't, you might want to wonder, am I in a cult? Do they encourage critical thinking about the group? And if they don't, it might be a cult. At a place to talk, we don't follow one voice. We make space for every voice. We don't silence doubt. We sit with it. You don't have to agree to belong. That's what a cult is. When you have to agree to be a part, that's a cult. We don't do that. That's not who we are. We're a community. And so if you want to be a place to talk, and if you want to come be a part or hang out with us, do. And if you decide after a little bit, hey, it's not a fit, then don't. It's okay. You're not going to go to hell if you don't hang out with us. Faith without fear conversation without control. That's kind of what we do at A Place to Talk. And I'd love for you to hang out with us sometime.